for missile waves. Less than an hour. And then, without warning, one of the most advanced cities in the Middle East slipped into darkness. It didn't happen slowly. There was no gradual fade, no time to process what was coming. One moment, Tel Aviv was alive, lights glowing across high-rise buildings, traffic moving through late-night streets, people inside homes scrolling, talking, living. And the next moment, sirens cut through everything. Sharp, urgent, impossible to ignore. The kind of sound that instantly changes the atmosphere, the kind that tells you this isn't a drill. Then came the explosions. Not one. Not two. Multiple impacts echoing across the city, each one separated just enough to keep the tension rising, to make it clear that this wasn't a single strike, but something coordinated, something deliberate. Residents rushed for shelter, some barely making it inside before the ground shook beneath them. Others froze for a split second too long, trying to understand what exactly was happening, trying to process whether this was another escalation or something entirely different. Because this felt different. Reports began to emerge almost immediately. Missiles launched from Iran. Multiple waves. Timed. Layered. Designed not just to hit, but to test, to probe, to push the limits of Israel's defense systems in real time. Emergency services scrambled across central Israel, responding to impact zones, searching for injured civilians, assessing structural damage. The night turned into a blur of flashing lights, sirens, and uncertainty. But while the world focused on the explosions, something else was happening in parallel. The lights started going out. Not everywhere at once, but in patches. Entire neighborhoods suddenly plunged into darkness. Streetlights flickering off. Buildings going black. Windows that had been glowing just moments earlier now empty, silent, disconnected. For residents, the psychological impact was immediate. Darkness changes everything. It strips away orientation, amplifies fear, makes every sound sharper, every second heavier. And the question began to form almost instantly. Was this part of the attack? Because modern warfare doesn't just aim for visible destruction. It targets systems. The invisible networks that keep a city functioning. Electricity. Communication. Infrastructure. You don't need to level a skyline if you can disrupt the systems that support it. You don't need total destruction if you can create sustained instability. And that's what made this moment so significant. This didn't look like a random barrage. It looked structured, intentional, designed to do more than just cause damage, designed to create pressure. As analysts began to examine the pattern, one detail stood out more than anything else. The timing, the spacing between waves, the lack of pause. This wasn't a single overwhelming strike. It was something more controlled, more calculated. Each wave arriving just as defenses were still engaged with the previous one. Each impact forcing response systems to stay active, to stay engaged, to stay under pressure without relief. Because missile defense isn't just about stopping one incoming threat. It's about managing multiple threats simultaneously. It's about tracking, calculating, intercepting, and doing all of that within seconds. And when those threats come in layers, when they arrive continuously instead of all at once, the challenge becomes exponentially harder. That's where the Sejjil missile enters the picture. A system that has been discussed for years, but rarely seen in real-world combat scenarios at this scale. A two-stage, solid-fuel ballistic missile designed for speed, mobility, and rapid deployment. Unlike older systems that require preparation time before launch, solid-fuel missiles can be deployed much faster. That reduces the window for detection. It reduces the time available for preemptive action. It shifts the balance, even if only slightly, in favor of the attacker. And in a situation like this, seconds matter. Because every second lost in detection is a second lost in response. Every delay narrows the margin for interception. And when multiple missiles are involved, those margins stack. They compound. They create moments where even highly advanced systems are forced to prioritize, to decide which threats to engage first, which trajectories to calculate, which interceptors to deploy. That doesn't mean defenses fail completely. Far from it. Israel's air defense network remains one of the most advanced in the world, built in layers specifically to handle different types of threats. Systems designed to intercept short-range projectiles, medium-range missiles, and long-range ballistic threats all working together in coordination. But no system is infinite. Every interceptor used is a resource consumed. Every engagement requires time, energy, and precision. And when attacks are designed to be continuous rather than singular, the dynamic changes. It's no longer just about whether a system can stop a missile. It becomes about how long it can sustain that level of response under constant pressure. And that's what this moment may represent. Not a breakthrough, not a collapse, but a test. A real-world demonstration of what sustained, coordinated missile pressure looks like against a modern defense network. Meanwhile, on the ground, the situation remained fluid. Emergency crews moved from one site to another, assessing damage, assisting civilians, securing areas impacted by debris. Reports indicated injuries in multiple locations, though details remained limited in the immediate aftermath. Officials urged residents to remain in shelters, to stay alert, to follow instructions as the situation continued to develop. And still, the darkness in parts of the city lingered. Power disruptions don't just affect lighting. They affect communication, transportation, emergency coordination. They introduce uncertainty into an already unstable situation. For residents, the lack of information can be just as unsettling as the sounds of explosions. Not knowing what's happening, not knowing what comes next, not knowing whether the system around you is still functioning the way it should. That uncertainty is part of the impact. Because beyond the physical damage, beyond the immediate consequences, there's a psychological layer to all of this. The awareness that systems can be tested, that stability can be disrupted, that even in highly developed environments, moments like this can happen quickly, without warning, and with significant effect. As the hours passed, more information began to surface, though much of it remained unconfirmed or evolving. Analysts, commentators, and officials all began to piece together what had happened, what it meant, and what might come next. The focus shifted from the immediate event to the broader implications. Because this isn't happening in isolation. Tensions in the region have been building, shifting, escalating in complex ways that extend far beyond a single incident. Actions lead to reactions. Signals are sent, interpreted, responded to. And in that environment, every event carries weight beyond its immediate impact. This strike, these waves, this blackout, they all feed into a larger narrative. One that involves strategy, deterrence, capability, and perception. Because in modern conflict, perception matters almost as much as reality. The ability to demonstrate capability, to show reach, to signal intent, these are all part of the equation. And events like this are watched closely, not just by those directly involved, but by observers around the world. Governments, analysts, military planners, markets. Everyone is paying attention. Because the implications extend beyond borders. Energy markets react to instability. Supply chains adjust to risk. Alliances reassess positions based on evolving dynamics. What happens in one region can ripple outward, influencing decisions and outcomes far beyond the immediate area. And that brings us back to the central question. What happens next? Because this moment, as intense as it is, may not be an endpoint. It may be part of an ongoing pattern. A sequence of actions and responses that continues to evolve over time. And if that's the case, then the focus shifts from what happened to what could happen. Will there be more waves? Will defenses adapt? Will strategies change? These are the questions that now define the conversation. And for those watching from the outside, trying to make sense of it all, trying to understand where this is heading, the answers aren't simple. They rarely are in situations like this. There are too many variables, too many unknowns, too many factors that can influence the outcome. But one thing is clear. This wasn't random. It wasn't chaotic. It was structured. Measured, intentional. And if that's the case, then it tells us something important about the nature of what's unfolding. That this is not just about single events. It's about sustained dynamics. About pressure, response, adaptation. About systems being tested, not just once, but repeatedly. And in that kind of environment, outcomes are rarely decided quickly. They unfold over time. They develop through sequences of events. Moments like this becoming reference points in a larger story that is still being written. For the people on the ground, though, the experience is immediate. It's not about strategy or analysis. It's about the sound of sirens, the rush to safety, the uncertainty of what comes next, the darkness where there was light just moments before, and the hope that the systems designed to protect them continue to hold. Because at the end of the day, beyond all the analysis, beyond all the discussion, that's what matters most. Safety, stability, the ability to return to normalcy. And whether that's possible in the current environment remains an open question. For now, the situation continues to develop. Information continues to emerge. And the world continues to watch. Because moments like this don't just pass unnoticed. They leave an impact. Not just on the ground, but on the broader understanding of what modern conflict looks like. How it's conducted. How it evolves. And how quickly it can change the reality on the ground. So the question remains, is this an isolated escalation? Or the beginning of something more sustained? Let me know what you think. And if you want to stay updated as this situation unfolds, make sure to subscribe and follow for the latest analysis. Because in a moment like this, staying informed matters more than ever.